Unashamed Unafraid, a show unashamed about sexual addiction recovery and unafraid of coming unto Christ for healing, where we share real recovery stories, learn from experts, and share resources that actually work. So join us in being unashamed and unafraid. Chris, do you know of a guest who is going to give you more crap personally on the show than who we're about to talk to?
Probably not, no. Well, maybe Jay would. If he was just being as a guest, he'd give me a lot of crap.
Or me.
Or you.
But I feel like you need some of that in your life.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the show. You're about to meet who I refer to as Magic Marc Pimsler, who has all the cool things. As we get into the episode, I invite you, if you're enjoying the show, you want to help us spread the hope, you can go to unashamedunafraid.com/donate and donate. We are a nonprofit 501c3 in order to help the movement, help us do scholarships for people, more episodes and all the things. Also go on iTunes and give us 5 stars. That's how the world finds us in the algorithms when people search, so we can share the message of hope. And someone who spreads a lot of hope to a lot of lives is my good friend. And I'm getting emotional. We haven't even started. My good friend, Magic Marc.
It's so good to be here.
Woo.
And to be with your emotions.
Yes. And so, Marc, paint yourself into context for people who don't know you personally, the way I have the privilege of knowing you, and also don't know what you do.
Paint myself into context. I feel like I need a canvas for that.
The canvas is this microphone.
The canvas is the mic. What do you want to know?
Who are you?
I don't know. It's taken a long time to figure that out. Here's what I know as of today. Tomorrow, that could all change.
Great.
Okay. So, I am a lover of God, probably the most important thing about me. I am a therapist, a person in long-term recovery. I am a human.
A teacher.
A teacher. A seeker. A student.
With a killer sense of humor.
Sometimes. Yeah.
And who can love big, although often jokes that he's dead inside.
Well, that's part of the loving big. That's what really surprises people. When this person who's dead inside actually loves you.
All right. So, Marc, you were a big fan of creativity and spontaneity.
I am.
And so, in the spirit of that, I did not tell Marc what we were going to talk about in this episode.
Don't know.
And it came clear. And so, this comes from a recent conversation you and I were having. We were hanging out in Chicago. And that is not a subject we've covered well on the podcast that you're like really gone to. And I think would be a killer jam session with you. So, topic of today's episode, how to make repair. Because when we do addiction, right? And when we're operating in that and we get into shame, we have all these behaviors where we've really burned people or we've really done things to cause harm. I think about, right, Kayla and the harm I've caused and other things. And Chris thinks about the harm he's caused and his story when he talks about, Autumn being in the hospital and different things. And so there's this deal of like, how do I make it right? How do I make repair? How do I make amends, to use the 12-step word? And so how do you make repair, Marc?
Well, first I would say you've got to get real clear on the difference between responsibility and accountability.
Do tell.
What is behind your eyes right now?
Welcome to the show.
What are you thinking right now?
Just how much I freaking love you.
Yeah,
I'm just happy that we're here. Get on with it. The people want to know,
The
Marc.
people want to know. All right, so here we go. So responsibility, literally, is the ability to respond appropriately to life situations. And when we are hijacked by addiction, we don't have the ability to be responsible. So I hurt a ton of people in my life, and especially in my addiction. I am not responsible for the things I did in my addiction, period. Now, I know all of the people at home, especially the spouses, are going, what are you talking about? Turn him off.
Wait, it's just that guy that talked about codependency? Yeah,
Yes.
Screw him.
Yeah. We don't even drink water anymore. Right. And so you have to listen to the codependency episode.
Listen to the
get that,
episode.
right.
Yeah.
But so, no, we are not responsible for what we did in our addiction if you actually believe in addiction. If you believe in the neurobiology of addiction, then, so think of it this way, 9/11, right? Many of us were watching the news. Some of us weren't quite born yet. That's okay. All got children. But
Shout out to Alpine, off screen.
Alpine, how old are you, Alpine? 17.
17.
Awesome.
Well,
Great age to be in this room right now. So where were you on 9/11?
Mrs. Potter's 7th grade science class
Yeah.
at Wasatch Junior High.
Were y'all watching the news?
Yeah.
Okay. Where were you, Chris?
walking into a mortgage conference downtown Salt Lake City.
Did you watch the news?
Yeah, after that. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Okay. I was in my active addiction, high on crystal meth in an apartment watching the news. And so now, remember how the newscasters completely blamed the American pilots?
I don't remember. That.
No, they didn't. Remember how they blamed the plane? No, they didn't. Who did they blame?
Those that took over the plane.
The hijackers.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it's the exact same thing with addiction.
Yep.
Right? The body is the plane. The mind, our consciousness, is the American pilots. And the addiction is the hijacker. So the plane can't take responsibility for 9/11. The American pilots can't take responsibility for, and Delta or whatever had to be held accountable. They had to make repair. They had to make it right. It wasn't their fault, and they had to do the right thing. And so that's the difference between responsibility and accountability. I have to account for my actions. Even though I can't be held responsible, I have to be held accountable. And that's what making repair is all about.
Well, and you think about, because this is a term we've talked about too, how people use the word acting out, right?
Mhm.
And how we've talked about, instead of the definition, acting out, because it's like acting out of what? Acting out of anger. No, you're acting outside your values.
Of my
you're
integrity.
acting outside of your integrity. You're
Right.
acting outside of self.
Right.
And so that's always like the prodigal son scripture in the Bible, right? He came to himself.
Sure.
You're like, how does someone come to themselves? Aren't you always yourself, right? But when you understand the hijacking, like that makes sense. Like, no, you are not actually always yourself in your body, in your integrity. So yeah, it's not a hall pass.
Right. But it is important. And for some people, it would be like, so what? What's the difference? The nuance, I think, is it matters, right? Because there's a level of intent that's involved.
Correct.
With responsibility, I am at choice with what I do and what I don't do. In active addiction, I am not at choice. That is the hallmark of addiction. And I absolutely have to account for. I have to bring the balance where there is a deficient balance. I have to bring it to account. And so in order to do that, I can't just go and say, hey, I'm sorry. Hey, I'm sorry I slept with your wife. Hey, I'm sorry.
I stole that money.
I stole that money.
Yeah.
Hey, that's insufficient,
Right.
right? First, what I have to do is get clear on how I was outside of myself. And I can't repair until I come back home to me.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's going to be happening again and again
Well,
and again.
and people have had the experience of the hollow I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Oh gosh, Chris, I'm so sorry, man. I shouldn't have done that, right? And you're like, you're not, dude, who cares? It's not landing, right?
Right.
Like
Spouses
this.
hear that all the time,
Right.
over and over again.
Right.
And they're like, whatever, you didn't maintain that for years.
Right.
It
Yeah.
means nothing. Sorry means nothing to me.
Because I'm
Absolutely.
still outside myself. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I also, part of being held accountable means I have an accountability buddy. I have someone that I am accountable to. And one of the biggest mistakes I have seen in the 20 years of doing this work is when people make family members, especially a spouse, their accountability buddy. That is
If you're doing that, stop.
If you're doing that, stop. It is the best way to stop having sex with your partner, is to make them your accountability person. Why? Because you're parentifying.
Well, I would even say stop all intimacy altogether.
Well, yeah, but I'm being
Period.
dramatic, right? So thanks.
Well, but the emotional too, though, because I think it's important.
Absolutely.
It's like you're killing
Well, because
all
what
the
you're
things.
doing is you're actually parentifying your partner.
Right.
You're putting them in the position to be mommy or to be daddy, and you're not supposed to want to have sex with your mother or your father. And so when there's
Well, or if you're the mother or father, you don't want to have sex with your kid.
either way, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's distasteful.
Yeah.
At best. Yeah.
Well, because I think that you're making sense of where we have a lot of partners say, right, like, I don't want to have sex with this person.
Right.
Or the belief that if I'm in a one-up in the position, I'm happy in the relationship. Not like, sweet, I have a one-up on my relationship with Chris. This is awesome. No, it's a lose for everybody.
The spouse believes that I will feel safe if I know absolutely everything my partner is doing. Then that will facilitate safety, and then trust will come. And that's absolutely not the case. It's a paradox. Actually, the more control you think you need to have over your partner, the less safety there is in the relationship, the less capacity for intimacy we have, because anytime you're the probation officer, anytime you're the court-appointed attorney, anytime you're any of the other roles that happens when these types of things happen and occur in coupleship, what you're doing is you're abdicating your ability to be a good partner.
Right.
And you're actually stripping your partner or the person who's in seeking recovery the ability to own their recovery, because you take ownership of their recovery, pass or fail, it's all on you.
Yeah,
Yep.
and you're stopping them, to bring it full circle. You're actually stopping them from being accountable.
Exactly. So the first thing is, again, getting clear on being in alignment with yourself. This is all about repair, right? Getting back into alignment with yourself. So I have to stop the process of active addiction and get into a process of active recovery. Then what I got to do is get clear about the difference between responsibility and accountability. The reason for that is because that is a shame destroyer. If I can realize, because so much of shame is, how could I have done this? Why would I love my wife? Why did I do that? I love my husband. How could I do that? How could I leave the kids at home? How could I do that? And so if I can begin to recognize that I was not responsible because the lights were on, but nobody was home, right? So do the accountability versus responsibility work. Then I am being held accountable to someone that I am not making amends to. And then I have the ability to actually assess and suss out what my values are. There's a ton of recovery work that has to happen individually before I have the ability or capacity to come correct in a repair. So then I can actually get clear on, what am I repairing? What was the harm done? And how did it happen? Right? I got to get clear on what the harm was that occurred, and then what was the draw on the relational account, right? Where's the relational equity? If it's in a deficit, which it usually is after a course of active addiction, then I've got to see what was the withdrawal on that emotional equity in the relationship. Then once I get clear on that, then I have the ability to go forward and take the action, right? Making amends is an action. It is not hollow words. It's not empty promises. It's not even about the future. It is absolutely, amends happens in the present.
Well, and that's, that is a part I love about the 12 steps, right? Is going into amends. And right when we talk 8 and 9, steps 8 and 9, and we go, there is moving some things, not just leaving it at, well, I'm sorry, right? Looking at the bank account, right? To use the analogy, right? Of like, what's the deficit or whatever, and looking at what's the actual damage, right? Instead of this like nuanced shame of, well, I'm just bad. So sorry, sorry, Kayla, I was a bad husband. How do you make up the deficit on that?
Because what often happens is then we crumble into our own victimhood and then put the person on the other side of the amend in a position to have to now take care of us. So we don't want to crumble into our victimhood. Oh, I'm such a piece of crap. I always mess up. I always do this. Yes, I relapse again. No,
again, not someone you want to have sex with.
Again, not someone you want to have sex with, and also not really a human in recovery. That is a victim seeking soothing, which is what we were doing in active addiction anyway, was someone, a wounded person seeking soothing. So I'm still doing that in my active recovery. That's not actually standing in my skin. So what we want to do is not, crawl before anyone. We don't want to puff up. We want to take up the space that's allotted to us, really be fully embodied, own the stuff that we did, set forth a course on making it right, seeing if there's any way that we have harmed the person that maybe we don't even know, right? Maybe we don't know just how many countless nights our spouse had while we were out. Maybe we don't know just how much money we spent. Maybe we don't know how much worry and how much time we stole, or how many unfulfilled happy moments we've stolen from our spouse. So maybe we don't even know the full impact of that. So we need to have the capacity to have a conversation where we put forth the harm that we are aware of, ask what else there is, how else we've harmed our spouse, and then work, or whoever it is we're making amends or repair to, and then work together on how to clean up the relationship, right? And then there's the other piece of making a living amends, which is I'm not going to keep doing the same thing,
Right.
which is why don't go making repair or amends in the first little bit of your recovery. That's the part where you got to do your own work.
That's where you make the empty promises. I promise, babe, I'm never gonna hurt you again. Well, I don't know that you can promise that right now. You're not enough in yourself in alignment with your values to be making that promise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why it feels hollow and that it ends up being hollow.
It is.
And around we go.
Right.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
So then how do you do that? How do you manage that with a spouse? Because she's wanting that. She's like, I want him to apologize to me, especially in the beginning. She's going to want that, right?
She's going to want you to apologize and you to pay.
Yep. Totally.
And that is a debt that can never be paid from a wounded space or from a wounded spouse. Either spouse that's wounded.
Right.
So if we're using a heteronormative, where the male was the addict and the female wasn't the addict. If he's the addict, right, then they both need to start out with an individual process of recovery.
Amen.
Otherwise, what will happen is she will forever want him to pay a debt that can never be satisfied. And who is signing up for that? No one that's healthy.
So I think everybody needs to listen to this the very first time that they find something out about their spouse that they're not okay with. They need to listen to this episode.
Yeah.
So that they can be like, how do we do this the right way? How do we find healing through this whole process? Because right now, I want to rip his freaking head off.
Yeah. Because we as a spouse who has cheated and as a spouse who has, I'm not a spouse anymore, but as a person who has cheated on a partner and as a person who's been cheated on as a partner, what I know to be true is that until we both get into a place of coming back to alignment, right? What I know about the relationship I was in when I when I was cheated on is that there were things that I did that set that up. And I'm talking directly to the spouses. Until you can look in the mirror and get crystal clear how I participated in this relationship happening this way, right? It takes two to tango. It takes two to make and two to break a relationship. Now, I am not victim blaming. I am not saying it is the spouse's fault. What I am saying is, I'm also not saying it's the addict's fault, but that's a whole nother episode. What I'm saying is that we both have to take a look at how we set this up. So the spouse needs to look at how they accepted unacceptable behavior for a period of time that allowed it to continue.
Right.
That's the big piece that a betrayed spouse needs to take a look at. What's my part in this? Where do I need to make amends also?
Well, where's their accountability? Not to the it's my fault. I think to everyone that's like up in arms about what you're saying, it's like, no, what Marc is giving you is the key to changing your life. Marc is handing you your empowerment back.
It is the key to being set free.
Well said.
And that's what I'm interested in. I am not interested, even more interested in families staying together or not. I am much more interested in people being free. Because if I am with a hostage, then they got to stay with me.
Right.
But if I am with a free person who is choosing every single night to lay beside me, man, that's a gift.
Yeah.
And that is something that I can honor. So
Right.
when I go to honor my partner, I know that they're there because they choose to in health, not are a hostage to my own wreckage.
Yeah. Well, and I've used the analogy before of like, well, I got to keep the family together where I'm putting relationship first because that's the godly thing to do or the kind thing to do. I'm like, great. So the house is burning down. So tell the kids and the dog and everyone that they need to stay in the house and inhale the smoke and have it collapse on them.
Right.
Because family first.
Yeah.
So go ahead and stay in the home because, we're going to stay there no matter what, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to the freedom, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So take me to the nitty gritty of that, so responsibility, accountability, I'm getting in alignment, finding myself, because one of the things that has been is, I think a question is like, where do I find the lines of that? So like I'll often say to people, like, if you come to me and have a complaint about my behavior prior to April 2014, I'm pretty much just going to believe you. Like if someone's like, hey, you were like a total jerk to me, or you didn't see me, or what you did was super offensive, I'll be like, likelihood is that story's probably true because I was super outside myself, out of alignment with my values and all that. So a debt in that account, that's probably there, right? So knowing that I've been living in denial, I've been in this space of not being clear, I don't know how to fully trust my compass in evaluating those accounts that might have deficits. So what are your recommendations as I get there, right? As I kind of find myself back to myself and I'm like, there's some cobwebs here. We haven't been hanging out for a minute, right? How do I navigate that process of making sure that I'm not in shame overstating the debt, that I'm not calling $100 $100 million, but that also that I'm not minimizing it and I'm not calling 10 grand a penny.
Right. Yeah. First and foremost, don't do this by yourself. Do this with someone in recovery that has what you want, right? That has a level of peace, that has a level of serenity, that has a level of success, that has a relationship where that emulates what it is that you're seeking. Okay. So find a model, to a mentor to mold your recovery around. Right? Don't reinvent the wheel. The wheel works. There's no need to change the wheel. The wheel's fine, right? And there are many pathways of recovery. So go find someone that you can connect with that has what you want, and then lay it out in front of them. Tell them your story, share what happened, share where you're at in it, and then start to make a list of all of the people that you've harmed. Right? There's 1,000 ways of doing amends process, but what I would say, the biggest mistakes that I find that people make is that they do it by themselves.
Yeah.
And they come up with all these brilliant ideas on their own. And that's where having the accountability person, not a family member, has the ability to see it from...
And not someone who you've harmed.
Not someone who you've harmed.
Yeah.
Has the ability to see it from a different perspective that's a little bit zoomed out. Right? No one reads the book with their nose touching the page, right? You got to read the book by pulling it back so you can see it clearly from what it is. And that's where someone else has the ability to look into your life and see it clearly from a different vantage point than you have. And that can be a coach, that can be a therapist, that can be a brother or sister in recovery, but it should be someone, a sponsor. Yeah. If you're in a program that offers that would be the ideal. But the reality is that it needs to be someone who has an understanding, has your back, and isn't in some way otherwise invested in the outcome of your success or lack thereof.
Yeah, I don't know anybody. I've never met anybody in recovery since I've been in it since 2008. I don't know anybody that has ever recovered without someone else helping them. Well, like being on their own. Because they've tried to do it on their own, and that's why they were still in they were still in there acting out.
But you had an experience, Chris, just the other night where you had an experience, a relationship go south with you, right? Someone say, hey, Chris, I don't want to be in brotherhood or in friendship with you.
Right.
And you reached out to, I know, 3 different people. I don't know if you reached out to more, because I know you reached out to Doug, because Doug told me, and then me and James at the same time. And your question was this question: hey, is there deficit here on my part? Is there an accountability that I'm missing or unaware of? And because we aren't personally invested in whether or not that brotherhood or friendship stays together, third party, and as you said, laying it out on the table, you forwarded us the text. Yeah. You sent us the thing and said, hey, if I'm missing it, right?
Please tell me.
Please tell me and let me see it.
Yep. What I can say is, without reading the text or knowing anything about the context, if you were bothered, if it stuck with you in some point, you had something in it. Okay? So, and that's a good barometer for me. That's a barometer I use, right?
Yeah.
If it goes like water off a duck's butt, right? Because do y'all cuss on this episode? Do we cuss? Can I say ass on here?
Yes.
Well, is it okay?
Damn, man.
Shit. All right. All right.
We just all started going.
Okay. So if it's like water off a duck's ass, then that's great. Then it's able to I'm able to keep moving. Then I'm not getting hooked in it. But if it keeps coming up, if it feels like I'm holding it in my body, if I can't let it go because I'm on the mental loop, then I got something in it. There's something in it for me. And usually there is some part in the process or the relationship where I was not clean, where I was not authentic, where I didn't hold a boundary, where I was in self-betrayal, or where I just lied, where I said something was okay that they did when it really wasn't. So now my resentment's coming out sideways. So I don't know what they told you, but here's what I'm telling you, is that you got something in it if it stuck with you to the point where you had to go call people about it.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Well, and that's the earlier in the episode, right, where it's like, whoa, spouses and partners don't freak out, right? It's not about blame and shame, which is where it goes so quickly. It's about seeking accountability, right? Like when you and I were having all the conversations putting together, right? Like the recovery cycle, right? What does accountability look like when people are in freedom? You're seeking it. You're not accidentally running into it. You're walking into situations saying, is there accountability here for me to pick up? I'm not trying to avoid accountability or pretend it's not there.
The reason we also got to think about, well, why do we make repair? Why do you make repair, Stephen?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going to tangent to the other thing we want to go to about who we owe repair and don't expecting repair.
Okay, I'll give you the answer since you don't want to answer the question. So why do we make repair? The reason we make repair is because to set us free. It's not actually for the other person. It's really, in truth, not even for the relationship, but it's so I can look me in the eye. Because if I walk into a room and I owe everyone in here repair, how likely am I going to walk into the room with freedom? Or am I going to walk into the room with all of the shame and all of the debt and all of the stuff that I haven't cleaned up? So the reason we actually make repair is so that I can walk into the room, look everyone in the eye, and feel okay without having to shrink or puff up in response to my shame.
Well, and I think the word we can interchange here in a lot of ways, I think, is forgiveness. Right? Because people use forgiveness the same way. Is forgiveness is, I'm forgiving you, Mark, for harming me or for ignoring me or being mean to me. Where it's like, no, forgiveness is for me. It's not about me giving you so you can get off the hook or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, repair's in that same nature, right?
Sure.
And I will name that it is beautiful when repair can really happen. Some of those beautiful moments in mine and your relationship have been around repair.
Sure.
Where you've harmed me, I've harmed you, right? At the same time, sometimes at different times. But that happening, right? That accountability and that, right? Like it is beautiful. There's connection there. There's bonding that happens. But that's not in principle why we do it. That, I'm only doing this for the relationship's sake, because that just drops us back into codependency.
Right. Yeah. So I'm never repairing for the relationship. There is benefit to the relationship when repair is done well. There is harm to the relationship when a repair is done badly or poorly. So it's not about, it's almost like the symptom of healthy repair and healthy recovery is an increased intimacy in relationship. But that's not the cause.
Meaning
for the repair.
You would want to have sex with that person.
Yes. I mean, every time that you wanted to have sex with me, I think was after a repair.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, there's that. Just kidding. That didn't happen, people.
You don't know the desires of my heart, Mark.
I do.
I do.
I do.
So, we talked about doing it in community, do it in connection, and that's how you can kind of dial that compass. And something else you said to me once that we were talking about with our friend, Miss Courtney, right, is that no one owes you repair.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And this goes for...
to put it in context, for devil's advocate of this, I'd say, I believe I owe Kayla repair.
Well, here's the thing. I don't owe anyone repair, and no one owes me relationship. I'm going to say that again.
Grab your notebook, kids.
I don't owe anyone repair, and no one owes me relationship.
Meaning I'm obligated.
Well, I'm not obligated to repair, and they're not obligated to relate with me.
Yes.
So now, if I want to be in relationship with people that I have harmed, it would be advantageous to me to repair. Again, I'm not doing it for the relationship. I'm doing it so that I can be free and I can stay in my process of recovery. And there are some amends or repairs that need to take place that don't involve the person harmed.
Yep.
So let's say I spent, I don't know, $50,000 on prostitutes. Okay. I can't go and make repair with each of those people.
The very example I was going to bring up for my own life.
Okay. So I can't go and make repair with each of those people. And part of my amends process may involve me doing $50,000 worth of volunteer work in sex trafficking, or paying $50,000 to a battered women's shelter, or there's got to be some way for me to clean up the balance, because that again sets me free.
Right.
Right. That's what good repair is about. If I'm doing it to manipulate you, so if I harmed you and I did a repair with you to get back in your good graces.
Yeah, to stay in relationship.
Putting
relationship first. Yeah.
That is creating contingencies in my recovery. That if we're good, I'm good, then I get to stay sober. If I'm bad, we're bad. It's putting too much. Power is the wrong word, but it's putting too much, for lack of a better word, power into the context of the relationship.
Yeah, because when I'm giving up accountability. I'm taking my ability to be accountable and I'm handing it to you.
I'm taking the ownership of my recovery and putting it on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think you can say, I'm abdicating power.
Right. Yeah.
Which I can do as the person in addiction or the person in relationship with the person to addiction. That can go either way. Mm-hmm. Right. In that human experience.
Because when I was in a relationship where someone cheated on me and I was going through their phone, I owed repair for that.
Right.
That's a boundary violation.
Yes.
So now what are we doing? Quantifying whose boundary violation is the worst one?
Yeah.
So now we're in a competition for who's the biggest jerk in the relationship? No, that's not a healthy relationship.
So how is that a boundary violation? Because Autumn is welcome to go through my phone anytime. I just don't care.
But it's because you've talked about it. It's because there's been conversation.
I disagree. I think if Autumn were to go through your phone, it's a boundary violation. Not because she can't or she shouldn't, but because what was the impulse for her to look at your phone? Now, it's a different thing. If you say, honey, would you go into my,
my hands are wet at the sink.
Yeah.
Can you text
Can you do something? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. But if I, as your partner, am looking at your phone for anything other than what you asked me to do, there's something out of order there, because it's a symptom of a lack of trust.
Well, it's the control, I think, is going to create trust situation. Yep. Yeah. And so go back to, so we talked about, you used an example from my own life. That's one of the big things is I'm like, I couldn't go find the women I experienced in prostitution, even if I wanted to.
Right.
And even if I could, again, like a repair you can't make.
Right.
How do I do that deficit, right? In some ways, for me, as you say, the ongoing is whenever as a therapist I work with and someone's like, thank you for being a safe man. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I wasn't, I am now, but so creating, that's one of the ways, right, that I make amends and change the deficit of, however. But what about if I'm in an experience where I'm saying, hey, I'm looking at the deficit with my accountability part, and I'm seeing $1,000 here, and I'm in relationship with someone that they're like, no, it's $10,000. What would you say navigating that scenario? Because I think that comes up a lot when people get in that one up, one down, right, recovery of when we talk about you owe me repair.
Well, if you're talking about a financial amends, there should in some way be...
No, I'm using your bank account analogy, right?
Okay, so you're not talking about owing you $1,000.
No, but if I say, if I'm in relation, I'll do me and Kayla, right? So if I'm in relation with Kayla and I say, hey, I really want to make repair for my own recovery of the harm I have caused you, as I talk to Chris and James and Jaron, right? People say, Mark, and this is repair I want to make to make the analogy bank account right or whatever. Right. And she's saying, and I need 10 other things, right? How would you navigate that scenario? Because what happens when someone wants to say, I want to stretch an inch into a mile. I want to, in victimhood,
Right. But that's
anger.
where that's where it's more about where the spouse is making you pay. And
Yeah.
that's not a debt that can be satisfied.
Right. So for that person
So that's for
listening
the
who's in
spouse
that
to be able to work
situation,
through.
yeah,
And that's where, so if my partner, if I am the person who had the addiction
yeah,
and I'm making amends to my spouse, and my spouse is like, yeah, no, actually it's,
you
I
gotta
need,
pay.
you get,
Right.
yeah. Then that is for them to do their work with their support system.
So how do you
So what
say
I would say
Right.
is that I hear you, correct? Because this is where the financial metaphor doesn't work,
Right.
because there are receipts for that.
Right.
For things like you violated trust, and so
Right.
yeah, I need to know where you are at every second of every. And I've literally worked with people who their spouse wants to know where they are at every second of every day. When they leave someplace, they need to know where it is. They want to know the mileage, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And that is a relationship that is doomed to fail.
Of course.
That is a person that is never going to heal their codependency and highly unlikely to ever actually recover in terms of the addict.
Right.
Under those, because it is a shame-based circumstance.
So give it words.
So what I would simply say is, I can so appreciate and see that you are so hurt, and I would love for us to talk to someone about that. Get out of the conversation, because between you two, you're not going to solve it.
Yeah, get the third party.
Get the
Whoever
third
that
party
is.
who knows recovery and knows what you're trying to do, and then work together to find that out. But again, trust is not going to be earned by doing the right thing. It's going to be earned slowly over time as trust builds and as intimacy is able to be reestablished. But good boys don't make happy wives. It's not about being a good boy that will make your wife happy.
It's like the nice guy.
It's not about the nice guy. Yeah. It's about showing up in truth, being vulnerable, sharing this actually builds more trust. Sharing how you've recently screwed up.
Yep.
Will build more trust than sharing your mileage with your wife.
Yeah.
Being able to say,
here's the good things I've done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to say, gosh, I was, I was just having a hard time this week, and reached out to my sponsor, went to some extra meetings, and was just really struggling in a emotional check-in. Not to have the wife or your partner be the person who's going to be soothing you or taking care of you, but just being able to have an emotional check-in. Yeah, I'm struggling. Right? Now, if that puts her in a tailspin, then that's her work to do.
Yep. So now give us the flip side of that. I'm the
Okay.
partner of someone in recovery. And I, just like I said, me in addiction, I'm like, I'm not sure how this compass should be dialed. The other side, I'm not sure this compass should be dialed because my anger, my shame, you need to pay for it is getting in the way. How do I navigate that experience to say, I'm open to repair in that it makes this relationship stay together, right? It makes this relationship stay healthy and together is a better way to say that. Versus I'm taking it too far to pain, or I'm taking it too low to minimizing.
Yeah. If anger is involved, then you are not in a place where you can be a deciding factor of you're not in the amends process if either of you are angry, period. There's way more work to be done before you ever get to repair if you're angry. If you're still at that stage, then there's other work to be done. So that's one thing I would say. The other thing that I would, because if you're coming in hot with you need to pay more, then you are stuck at an earlier phase.
Yes.
Yeah. This is all making so much sense to me in a lot of ways, because when you said you go out and find someone that has what you want, well, they're going to tell you this is what works. So if women are coming to my wife and saying, hey, you guys have an amazing relationship, how did you do this? And she's going to be like, I just let it go. Like, let him do his own thing. When I quit trying to handle and manage his recovery,
The control. Yeah.
the control is when everything changed.
Of course.
Because I finally stepped up in my own recovery for myself and showed up how I needed to show up.
You got the space and the grace to be a man
Yes.
Yep.
instead of a little boy under her thumb.
Yes.
Yeah. Under mommies. Yeah. Trying to be, yep. Yep. Well, and I think the thing that, is read between the lines as we've been talking this episode is it's actually the strongest way to influence your partner for the change that you're actually wanting.
Is what?
Is to let it go, is to do the repair the way we're talking
Well, I don't
about.
think let it go is, Auden didn't let it go. And I would encourage her to stop saying that, because it's actually not true. And it's also not a helpful message for anyone, the addict or the spouse, because that sounds like spiritual bypassing. That sounds like toxic positivity. That sounds like all of the BS pop culture psychology stuff that has landed our culture where it is because, oh yeah, just let it go. Just, say your affirmations, do a gratitude list, and you'll be fine. No, she needed to grieve the husband that she thought she was in relationship with. She needed to grieve the marriage she thought she was in. She had a right to be angry, to be enraged at the audacity of what you did to y'all's marriage.
Right.
And none of that could be done with you. Because if you are her batting board, that account will never settle up, because she's causing harm in the relationship at this point. So now we got two perpetrators in the relationship. So what she had to do was grieve, get angry. She had to be willing to look. Go ahead.
But that's where why people stay in the control.
Because they haven't done their work.
Yeah, because I was going to say the let it go and the spiritual bypass, you're saying I totally agree. But the letting go of control, right?
It's letting go.
I'm letting go of controlling
the
your
illusion
addiction.
of control, because
I agree, but with the illusion part. But you see what I'm saying? It's letting go of the control, because the grief is going to come right up, right? What's right behind all that anger and behind that is it you got to be with the feelings, right? Of what actually is, right?
And then you also have to be able to take a look at yourself. And again, like I said, we're using Autumn. How did Autumn set up this part of her? What's her part in this relationship?
Yep.
And then there has to be a willingness to bury and allow the old marriage to die. Right. So I have a lot of couples who are, when they want to come and do a couples intensive, very often they'll say, we had such a great relationship. I just want to get back to how that was.
Right.
And what I tell them is, that's never going to happen. That relationship is dead. So you got to bury it. We got to grieve it. It's a loss. It's a wrap. It's over. Now, you can either separate, you can be married to someone else, or you can be in a new marriage with this same spouse. But what you don't get to do is go back to how it was, because that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, and the denial of that. Because you're seeing that in a rose-colored. I wish we could go back to when we didn't know that the house was on fire and was pretending everything was okay.
Or when we first met, before things got complicated, or any hundred of other things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But here's what I do know from couples who are willing to go through this process is they're having better sex, they're much more connected, they're much happier, they like each other. Their cortisol levels are down, inflammation is down in their body, right? They are healthier, they're much more active, their kids are happier, and they're in a better relationship than they ever could have been had the affair never taken place. And so there's a ton of research, if you're interested in what I'm talking about right now, around post-traumatic growth. Go out there, look at the Google, and research post-traumatic growth, and you'll find all this research.
Well, and in case anyone thinks we've come off the rails, that's also where lasting sobriety happens.
Yep.
Is in relationships that look like that.
Well, I mean, I think single people can also have lasting recovery.
But single people have relationships around them that look like that. Yeah, I'm not saying people don't end up getting divorced or leaving their partner or stepping away from family relationships. Right. But when you look at people who are not excellent managers of recovery or excellent white knucklers, when you look at the people that just got it, the relationships that they are in, their close, intimate relationships, look like what you described.
Yeah. to some extent.
Yeah, not perfect.
Yeah,
There's no perfect.
I think what I'm thinking of is also the person who's made recovery the new addiction. And that kind of dry drunk mentality. So they may have a longevity of recovery, but aren't in what you're talking about. So I don't know that I would.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
People can do the dry drunk thing. But again, that's where I would say, like, almost always their sobriety is a ticking time bomb, right?
I've seen people go that way 30 years. So
I mean,
maybe
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
You said you had a question?
Tell me again.
Yeah, ask it.
Go ahead.
Chris has it right here.
Chris has the question.
Yeah. What advice do you have for someone who is asked to be the accountability buddy or partner?
What do you say that again?
What advice do you have for someone that is asked to be that accountability partner?
Their spouse is asked to be the accountability?
Well, no, like anybody. So
the answer to that question, say no. But let's say Jaron asks me tomorrow and he says, "Hey, Steve, I listened to the episode. I'm the right person out of context. What's a good way for me to show up as that person? What advice would you give that person?
That's going to be the accountability partner.
So if I'm asking you, Chris, to be my accountability partner.
Yes, what advice do you have for me?
Oh, what I would, to be, so here's what I think you're asking me, is that when you are asking someone to be your accountability buddy, it is helpful to come in with clarity in what you're actually asking for. So what I'm asking for is, if I don't call you at least once a week, call me. If we get on the phone and I haven't checked in, ask me how my recovery is going. Or I might say, actually, I need for you not to ask me. I will come to you. But I tend to run when my accountability buddy people hound me, right? So the onus is on me, the person in recovery who is seeking accountability, to come with a little bit of a job description and some guidelines for what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
So is that what you're asking?
Yeah, which is great, because like I've had numerous people come to me and they're like, "I want you to be my sponsor," and I'm like, "All right, but I'm going to have you come to me." Like when I'm not going to be the one that's going to be going after you and hounding you, but they're not even telling me what they want.
Yeah, but that's a style thing in sponsorship.
Yeah.
There are some sponsors who will absolutely hound, and
and some people love that, and to make some people.
So it's about just knowing what works for you.
Well, and I think to put it on the context of the person who's going to be the accountability buddy, make sure they're giving you the details. So if Jaron calls me tomorrow and says, "Will you be my accountability buddy or sponsor, whatever word we want to use, or support?" I can say, "Tell me what that means. Before I agree to be this role in your life, you're supposed to give me a job description," in case you didn't listen to the episode. So go listen to the episode and then give me the job. So don't sign up for it when they haven't given you a job description.
Right.
So make sure you got the job description from them.
Now, there are times I'll be in conversation with someone.
Sure.
And then just simply be like, "Okay, how do you want me to show up in this conversation?
Yeah.
Do you just want me to listen? Do you want me to give my 2 cents? Do you want me to magic mark it up? Like, what is it that you want?"
That's huge for my relationship with Adam.
Yeah.
I ask her that all the time.
Yeah. How do you want me to show up?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because maybe she doesn't want me to fix it.
Yep.
And probably often she doesn't.
She wants me to just listen.
She just wants you to listen and be your husband.
Yeah.
And Mark, I want you to know how I wanted you to show up in this episode was just authentically yourself, in which I believe you have done. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you
for jumping on and jamming again with us.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Man, I love this episode. This is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a mountain of repair that you owe me from some things that were said in here. And so in order for us to stay in a relationship and for my recovery to be okay, sarcasm, just in case you missed it. Just in case you missed it. Did you listen to the episode? I'll go back and listen to it myself. Mark, we always like to do songs at the end of our episode. A song that's hitting you in your recovery heart right now that feels healing. We can just play at the end of this episode. Song that's on your heart right now.
Oh.
That cold dead one.
The cold dead heart. Can I look at my phone? I don't know.
You are. Look. Yeah. Song that's on your heart.
Song that's on my heart right now. What's the song that's on your heart while I'm looking?
No.
No? It doesn't work that way?
Do you know how obnoxious this show would be if I just played my songs at the end of it? They have to
Chris, what's a recovery song that you like?
Don't ask Chris to bail you out.
I'm not bailing. I'm buying some time.
What is the song on your heart?
Song on my heart.
Yeah, song on your heart right now.
Gosh, I don't know. Nothing comes to mind. That's sad, isn't it?
That's really weird.
I know, because I'm such a
you are
song
so
person.
into music.
I'm so into music. I know. I've actually been in a period of silence for the last month or so.
So is that your song?
All right.
Silence.
Yeah, I think right now, and this
All right.
really is true.
Yes.
I know, like, I'm not fulfilling the contract here, but whatever.
That you didn't know you were.
That I didn't know that I signed.
Be a
in
nice
for.
guy, Mark.
But the truth is I have, over the last month, I've moved into a space of just deeper silence and eliminating a lot of the distractions, which actually includes driving with music or just music in the background or the TV in the background.
No one listen to Mark. Play our podcast while you're driving. He's wrong.
A lot of the background noise in my life, I have really begun to eliminate. And it's amazing my connection to what you might call the Holy Spirit or God or the silent knowledge.
Yep.
As I've intentionally made my life more silent, that voice has gotten louder.
Yep.
Heck yeah.
So to all of our friends out there, continue to be unashamed. Listen to that voice. Follow us at Unashamed Unafraid, social media. Mark, if someone would like to find you, schedule an intensive, get some knowledge, show up to one of your trainings, where would they find you?
You can email at mvp@mvp-consulting.net, or you can check me on Instagram at mpimsler, or Facebook, or email Steven and he'll get you in contact with me.
Yes, and we'll throw it in the show notes. Love you, my brother. And the song we'll go out with, which is one you use all the time that has been loved, is The Sound of Silence by Disturbed. Just to be a little bit ironic.
Good one.
And until we can get together again, we invite you to continue to be unashamed.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs and voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed